heritage. So I believe I can connect with many communities that have are watching and have been part of this live stream today. Before we get started though, on behalf of City of Whittlesea, I would like to recognise the rich Aboriginal heritage of this country and acknowledge the Wurundjeri Wurrung clan as the traditional owners of the place now known as the City of Whittlesea. I myself am residing on the unceded lands of the Woiwurrung, Boonwurrung, Wadawurrung, Donwurrung and Djadjawurrung people, and would like to pay and extend my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and anyone else who is joining us today on the YouTube Live. Now we're all here to talk about the City of Whittlesea's local homes for local people proposal to lease 1F Ashleen Street, Wollert for affordable housing. This session is an opportunity to hear about what is being proposed and hopefully provide some clarity on key issues raised by residents through the consultation period. To tell you more about this proposal and what it might mean for you, we have the following people who will be presenting in just a little bit. We have Justin O'Mara, the Director of Planning and Development at the City of Whittlesea. We have with us Rachel Hornsby, Director of Hornsby & Co., a consultancy that specialises in planning and delivery of affordable housing and related policy projects. And we also have with us Rob McGoran, Director at MGS Architecture, an architectural and urban design firm that have extensive experience with affordable housing projects. Now, following the presentation, the panel will also be responding to some pre-submitted questions and some live questions via Mentimeter. However, we do have a lot of pre-submitted questions, so we may only have time for a few additional ones. I will, on my screen, provide you the Mentimeter details right after the presentation, so don't worry about that. It will come onto your screen shortly. Also with us this evening on the screen, as you might see, are the City of Whittlesea Administrators, Lydia Wilson. Give us a wave, Lydia, so people can see you.
Good evening, everyone.
Peter Duncan.
Good evening, everybody.
And Chris Eddy.
Hi, everyone.
Their role today will be of listening into the questions that are being asked by the community ahead of their consideration of the community consultation feedback on the proposal later this year. So thank you for being here and listening to what the community has to say. Now, during the consultation period, Council has heard from members of the Wollert community who are worried about this proposal, what this proposal might mean for them and their neighbourhoods. Council understands your concerns and is here to share its research and the research of experts in the field of building and managing affordable housing, which I think might alleviate some of your worries. One of the reasons Council was motivated to put forward this proposal in the first place was the feedback it actually received from extensive consultation with community members from every corner of City of Whittlesea earlier in this year about the Community Plan 2021-2025. So you may have already been having a conversation about this earlier in the year. As part of that consultation, more than 70% of those who responded to the questions about affordable housing say that there should be more social and affordable housing for households with low and moderate incomes in the City of Whittlesea. And that Council should take an action to increase affordable housing options for its residents. They also said that they wanted to see more housing services to support people to access affordable housing in the City of Whittlesea. So Council asked these questions in the community plan consultations because housing affordability is a rapidly escalating problem here in the City of Whittlesea, but also around the state of Victoria. And I might also extend it to say that it's almost like a national issue to some extent. The impact on the people of the City of Whittlesea is significant, and Council is committed to doing what it can to ensure every single one of its residents has a safe and secure place to call home. Now, Council research shows that 1/3 of households in the City of Whittlesea are suffering from housing stress, which means they are spending 30% or more of their income on housing. And the percentage of income income very low or low income households are spending on housing is much higher. That means if communities have lower income, they're spending more on housing. Between 69 to 90% of their income, which doesn't leave much for other necessities that people have and families have in our communities. Around 1 in 5 households in the city of Whittlesea are classified as having very low incomes. Families of the household type of in the most need of affordable housing options. Children and young people make up 50% of local housing service provider clients. In 2019 and 2020, there were no homes available for rent in the Epping, North and Wollert area that were affordable for people on very low incomes. So the number of people being priced out of the private rental market in the city of Whittlesea continues to grow. And the pandemic, which we've all experienced, has forced even more people into housing stress. 3,800 additional affordable homes are needed urgently to start to tackle this escalating problem. That is why Council is proposing this affordable housing development at 1F Ashley Street, Wollert. It is one among many of the initiatives Council is working on to address the crisis in affordable housing for local people. To tell you more about the nuts and bolts of the proposal is the City of Whittlesea Director, sorry, I'll do that again. The City of Whittlesea Director Planning and Development, Justin O'Mara. Over to you.
Great. Thank you, Mehek. Look, I just wanted to start off by saying, and Mehek, can you please move to the next slide? I just wanted to start off by saying that this proposal is in the very early stages. At the moment, Council is in the first stage of community engagement about whether or not it should lease 1F Ashline Street for affordable housing. The proposal is that the land would be leased to a community housing organisation at a low cost for a maximum term of 50 years. So I just want to reinforce that where Council's proposal is to lease, not to sell the land. So it would be retained in Council ownership. The community engagement responses we received during this current engagement period will help inform Council's decision about whether or not to proceed with the proposal to lease the land. The feedback gathered will also provide guidance on what are some of the key design features that should be considered if the proposal does proceed to the next stage of consideration. Many of you on this session tonight will be really familiar with the site, so I'm not going to go into it in a lot of detail, but a quick overview is the land is approximately 5,000 square metres in area. The land has been zoned for general residential use since 2008, so for 13 years it's been in the general residential zoning, which is the same zone that all residential land in the area is zoned as. So all land in that area is the general residential zone. In fact, it's the same zoning that applies really in all Melbourne suburbs. So it's not different to any other area in the city of Whittlesea or in the Melbourne suburbs. The site is ideally located for housing because it's close to parks, schools, shops, public transport bus lines, and other facilities. The site is currently vacant, as you know, and it's not needed for another purpose, as there are a number of existing public open space areas in the immediate area. As shown on the plan on the screen, all those green areas are existing open space areas. Council also has plans to develop an active recreation reserve nearby, and this will include multiple sporting fields. Next slide, please, Mehek. Thank you. So originally, Council had planned to build the Wollert East Community Centre on the site at Ashline Street, but this centre has since been moved to the neighbouring Wollert East Prep to Year 12 school site. This is to enable better integration between the community centre and the school, and also the active sporting spaces within the school grounds. As a result of the move to the school site, council was able to build a larger and better community centre at the school because the site in Ashline Street was too small to accommodate the entire facility. The centre will include 3 kindergarten rooms, maternal and child health rooms, community meeting spaces, consulting rooms and offices for visiting community services. So it's a really large building with supporting car parking, etc. This new centre is currently under construction by council and is due to open next year in 2022. And there's a good image of it up on the screen there about how it will look when it's all finished. Next slide, please, Mehek. So at this stage of the proposal, no plans have been drawn up about how many homes might be developed on the site or what the homes might look like. If the proposal does go ahead, council would partner with a community housing organisation, and it's the community housing organisation that would prepare proposed design for the homes. As part of this process, nearby residents would have the opportunity to provide feedback on the proposed design of the homes in a future stage of community engagement. So that would happen at a future stage if council decides to proceed with the lease of the land. Whilst we can't, specify the number of homes at this stage or what they will look like, what I can clarify is that the general residential zone that applies to the land would allow for between 15 and 36 dwellings. These dwellings could be 1 or 2 stories in keeping with the types of homes that are already constructed in the area. And there is the possibility of utilising some of the land facing High Park Drive, so that's the road adjacent to the school, for 3-storey housing. This is the same outcome as we would expect if the land was developed for private residential use. There is no difference in the design requirements between private homes and affordable homes. They need to apply to the same building and planning requirements. Council would ensure that any housing development at this site meets planning and building requirements and is also of a high quality build. The housing development would need to look like homes in the surrounding neighbourhood and not impose on neighbouring homes. Traffic and car parking would also be key considerations in any development plans for this site. Council would ensure that the development has enough car parking for future residents, as well as safe and efficient local traffic connections. Council's traffic analysis shows that there is more than enough capacity in this area to cater for residential development on this site. Also, any development plan for the site would need to include a thorough traffic assessment specifically associated with the proposed development. So we'd really need to look at all the ins and outs of how that would work. So next up, Rob McGurran from MGS Architects will take us through what the building and planning requirements look like in reality. So he's going to take you through some examples with a few examples of projects of affordable housing in other areas. Over to you, Rob.
Sorry, you just
I've
unmuted.
made the mistake of being on mute, the 2021 mistake of the year. But I'll just take you through quickly something of the last 35 years of our practice. We're an architectural and urban design practice, but I've also sat on the board of affordable housing agencies that deal with both inner city and then across all of Victoria for people with disabilities and a range of other needs. So a pretty broad coverage over a long period of time and about 20 years of ongoing research in this area with partners at the University of Melbourne. But as Justin said, developing local housing for local people is also about creating neighbourhoods where any affordable housing in that neighbourhood is well managed and it fits in, because these are local people, they want to fit in to the neighbourhoods. And the managers of this housing want it to be high quality, low maintenance and well run. in the long term. It's in their interests to have these facilities work well in the long term. This is one example. We didn't design this example, but I'm putting this up as an example of the sorts of more recent work that's being done by the range of really clever and expert people providing services in a range of housing types. This is for women's property initiatives in the Cardinia Council area. And they're a group that really specialise in providing housing for women and children in particular, and women over 55 who are experiencing or at risk of losing their homes or housing as a result of many circumstances, but often family violence as one of those issues. But and sometimes deaths in families and so on. But you can see how in this case, and if we go to the next slide, which is of the same project a little closer up and looking around the corner, how the projects are designed to feel like other projects in the street, each with their own character, their sense of home, front yards, etc., and really take their cues from the materials and finishes and quality of build of the surrounding housing in those areas in which they sit, and to provide a diversity of housing that meet the needs of the community of this particular area for the next 50 years plus, as Justin has just talked about. If we go to the next slide. And this idea of affordable housing for our local communities is not a new idea. This is an example of a project in a old Tudor village of all things that we've been working on in inner Melbourne for a community housing group that's been around for 151 years, providing housing for older Melburnians through that entire period, and for people of diverse income and backgrounds. Been an incredibly successful example, but it's just exemplifying how different locations with different contexts, the architects as they respond to these areas, working with the very experienced community housing agencies that Rachel will talk to you about, will develop solutions that talk to that particular site, and in this case, Ashline, to ensure that it's a good fit for its neighbourhood. Next slide, thanks. They'll be well finished internally. They're designed to be timeless in their solutions, to add value to the street, to be one of the better homes in the street, because they understand as community housing providers how important that is, that they are a good fit in these areas. And this is an example of some of our recent work in Banyule that we've done for older persons housing that's affordable. And then if we go to the next slide, I think the thing that we're all faced with, and particularly we're seeing it on the news nearly every night with COVID, is that the gap between us needing the support and a bit of a leg up with affordable housing for a short period of time can be the difference for the rest of our lives. These are some of the people that I've worked with over the years, and to see them not have housing but have a home, and to really be proud home occupiers and see the transformation that's made, whether they're a young mother with a child, an older couple, somebody who's suffered a disability, somebody who's older and alone. It's been amazing for me over that journey. I think as a community, you'll be very proud of knowing that you've looked after your neighbourhood over time, and I'm pleased to see the council is taking on this initiative to develop this network of solutions for each of the neighbourhoods that make up this great community to ensure that they can keep communities together going forward. And final slide, I think. That's all from me. And it's over to my good friend Rachel to talk about how and what the community housing sector is about and how that might work in this instance.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, over to Rachel, who, just as a reminder for everyone else, is a consultant and a specialist in community housing and in using council land for affordable housing. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Mihaka. Thank you very much, Rob. I think those images that Rob put up are really important reminder about not just the people who will live in these houses, but the quality of the build that can be experienced in developing affordable housing. Next slide, thanks. Actually, the next one after that as well. So what I wanted to talk through today is to really focus, I guess, on not just the concept of more broadly affordable housing, but how that might relate to the Ashline Street site if council was to go ahead with this proposal for affordable housing. And I think one of the biggest challenges in this conversation in the community is to really get people to understand what affordable housing is. And it may be that they've had either no experience or perhaps not a very good experience with affordable housing, and they might have something that's set in their mind about what's going to be on Ashline Street, but that's often not the case. So things to keep in mind for what is affordable housing: it's a safe, secure, affordable place to live. So it's not the accommodation of last resort. It's a safe place. It's secure. It's part of the neighbourhood, and it's at a price that people can afford. It is for people who are on very low to moderate income households. So, you know, people on high and very high incomes they don't need to access affordable housing. They tend to operate in the private rental market, either private rentals or private ownership. And but there are people who are finding it really difficult to get into the private housing market. And it used to be that it was difficult for some people to buy a house, but now it's at the point where it's really difficult for many people to even find a house that they can rent. And, you know, people would understand that the more of your household income that you're spending on rent or mortgage repayments, the less there is that's left over to pay for education, for health, to get to and from work and those sorts of things. So affordable housing provides that opportunity for people to have a roof over their head, to be able to do it at a price they can afford, but also to create a home and be part of the community. Affordable housing is different from private market housing because it's managed either by the not-for-profit sector, not-for-profit community housing organisations, or it's managed by the state government. For Ashline Street, because the land would be retained by council's talking about considering leasing the property, not selling the property, the site would be managed by a not-for-profit community housing organisation. So these are called community housing organisations, and these are organisations who are set up with the purpose of providing housing for people who need it. But the thing that a lot of people don't realise is that those organisations have to go through a really rigorous registration process as well. It's not just anyone who can start building houses and providing them for people. There's really strict criteria that they need to meet in terms of the quality of the house, the quality of the tenancy management, how do they work and engage with their communities as well. Next slide, thanks, Miha. To build on Rob's point, I think it's really important to remember who lives in affordable housing. So all sorts of people who are on low, very low or moderate income households live in affordable housing. So it can be older people, families, single people. It's often people who are working in essential but lower paid jobs. And this is something that we heard a lot about through the COVID crisis, that essential work is not just about nurses and ambulance drivers and police and firefighters. It's really essential that we have people in our community who are carers, working in aged care facilities, people working in hospitality, retail, cleaners. I mean, we've heard so much about the importance of the work that cleaners are doing, people who are working in supermarkets. So those sorts of people are in these important jobs, but not on a high income. They often need to live in affordable housing. There are also people living in affordable housing who are on a benefit. So that's people who are on the old age pension, people living with disability, students often who can't live at home for whatever reason. They might have family that lives regionally in Victoria, but they need to come to the city to study, or they just might have a home life for which they can't stay at home anymore. People who are looking for work. There's this real diversity of people who live in affordable housing, and that diversity will be reflected in any development of council land if it goes ahead with the proposal. And just to reiterate, affordable housing is for local people with connections to the local community. This is not about importing people who need housing. There are already a significant number of households in the city of Whittlesea that really need a roof over their head. They need a helping hand. They need to be able to move from paying most of their household income on rent or mortgage into something where they can be safe, secure and affordable. Next slide, thanks. One of the things about the Ashline Street opportunity really that council needs to consider is that the housing, if it goes ahead, would be built by a community housing organisation. This won't be state government housing. It won't be the commission housing that some people have heard about and have some real concerns about. So it's going to be built to look like the other housing in the street, the same sorts of housing that you would get even if there was a private developer of the site. And the community housing organisation is an organisation that has to meet much higher standards than the private sector needs to, and certainly is much more accountable, perhaps, and much more connected than the state sector is as well. So the state government, it's a big organisation. It's hard for them to stay individually connected to communities. But these not-for-profit organisations, they're different than that. The council would only allow somebody to develop on the site if they had a good track record in tenancy management. And that means managing any neighbourhood issues or interpersonal issues between the tenants within the property as well. Good property management, Rob talked about this. The organisation is not like a developer who just buys and sells and doesn't care if it, the building starts leaking after 2 years. These assets will need to be managed into the long term. So they're really good at maintaining the assets, keeping everything shipshape. And the community housing organisation has a keen interest in community engagement and development. They need and want their residents to be part of a community, because once you're part of a community, you can really turn your life around. If you know who your neighbour is, if you attend the local football club, if you volunteer at the local tuck shop at the school, they're the sorts of important connections that make it much more than just about a roof over your head, but about providing a home. Next slide, thanks. And this is my final slide, and I guess really to just highlight the points that I've talked about. This development will be better than other affordable housing that you may be familiar with. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Like, we know that there's some examples in Melbourne where affordable housing was not designed or managed well. And these are the sorts of images that come to people's minds. They're the housing towers where people haven't got enough indoor or outdoor space. The places where the property hasn't been maintained well, or there hasn't been that really good support for the tenants. But this will be different because the council will require it to be different. And the key difference is that council, if it goes ahead with this proposal, will retain the land. So this is not about selling off the land, this is about keeping the land. So council will have control through the lease to make sure the development has good design and is well managed. The community housing organisation themselves, they'll have a really targeted approach to make sure the tenancies and properties are actively managed. It's in their own best interest that this is a success. And they have the staff with the skills and the resources and experience to do that. And I guess the final point to make is that this proposal has come about because council's working for the whole community. And that includes house owners, but it also includes people who need somewhere to live that's safe, secure and affordable. I think that's my final slide. Thanks, Miha.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, everyone else, for presenting. That brings us to the end of our presentation part for tonight. But we will move shortly into questions from yourselves and listening, and some pre-submitted questions from the registrations in just a second. If you're just tuning in now, to give you a reminder, we're here talking about the affordable housing conversation in the city of Whittlesea, and I'm joined by Rob, Justin, and Rachel. Now, to interact with the audience and to pass on your questions, we will be using the Mentimeter app or interface to be able to send your questions. All you got to do is scan the screen right now, the QR code that's on the screen, or you can type in the URL that's on my screen and enter the code. It will pop up with a little chat box or a little box on your mobile phone or desktop, wherever you are using this, and you can type in your questions there. I'm just going to move over so we can see the questions that are coming in. Present that. If at any time you jump out or sign out of that, the code is at the top of my screen, so you can just come back on straight away. So we're going to, for the panel, I'm going to read out some questions and pass them to you as I see relevant that are coming from our community. So the first question that we've got is, why are the affordable homes in such an expensive area like Wallet and also in front of the newest big primary school? And I might pass this question on to Justin.
Thank you, Mehek. Look, thank you for that question. And as has been outlined this evening, everyone needs a home. Affordable housing is part of our housing system in Australia, and it is definitely classified as essential community infrastructure. This isn't something that we have, like to have. It's definitely an essential thing that we need in Australia. We need a lot more of it. And as was outlined earlier, there's a shortage of 3,800 affordable homes across the city of Whittlesea alone, let alone all of metropolitan Melbourne, Victoria, and Australia. As also outlined in the local statistics earlier, there is an urgent need for more affordable housing in all areas in the city of Whittlesea, and this includes Wollert. So we're not just looking at Wollert in terms of where affordable housing could be provided. There's other state government agencies and other community housing providers looking all over the municipality for where that could be accommodated in the future. If constructed, the housing will need to be of a high quality and a similar design to the surrounding area, to make sure it's well integrated and keeps in with neighbourhood character. This is a really key theme that Council has made clear. We want it to, if it does proceed to the next stage, we want it to look really good. We want it to really fit in and not stand out as being something different. It needs to fit in with what the existing character of the area is.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of the question was around the school, and the proximity to the school is actually a good thing. It makes it an ideal location for housing. It's highly likely that the people that live in this housing would be those who can most benefit from living near a school. This includes people such as families with young children. And we know that the local evidence is that families with children and young people are in most need of affordable housing within the municipality. So that makes it really an ideal spot. People that are most in need in the municipality are highly likely to need to be in close proximity to the school, and also the community activity centre with the kindergartens, the child health facilities, etc. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. In the world that I come from, like, that response sounds like it's deeply social impactful work, and it means that even if it's working towards a smaller community of low and people who need affordable housing, it actually impacts the wider community as well, in uplifting kind of the social impact. Thank you. The next question from the audience is, what will it take for council to scrap this decision? I think I might put that question to Justin as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mehek. Look, interesting question, and my response is that we've, as mentioned in the presentations this evening, the outcomes of this current community engagement period will be presented to council to consider the next step, a decision. So council needs to make a decision at a formal council meeting in December on whether or not to proceed to the next stage of this proposal. The report that goes to council in December will outline the feedback received during this engagement period, together with other factors such as the broader community needs, which we've outlined tonight, research and other evidence relating to this proposal. So there's no decision at this point about the proposal. That will happen at the December council meeting later on this year, on the 6th of December.
Great, thank you, Justin. The next question we've got is, why does housing have to be planned for this estate? Why would you build a 3-story accommodation when clearly the highest building here is a 2-story accommodation, a 2-story building? Why put it here? Again, I'm going to pass this on to you, Justin, given you've already started talking about why Wollert.
Yeah, thank you, Mehek. Look, while up to 3 stories are permitted in all general residential zone land in Melbourne, as I outlined earlier, the land is zoned general residential zone, which is the same as other residential areas within the municipality and all of the suburbs in Melbourne. If it proceeds, council, I've got to make it clear, if it proceeds, council has not yet decided on the height of any housing development. If it does proceed, the design of the housing would need to form part of the proposed development plan, which would be prepared in partnership with a community housing organisation. And look, as part of that process, if we get to that stage, nearby residents would have the opportunity to provide feedback on the proposed design plan for this property. So there would be further community consultation with nearby residents on the design of any homes proposed for the site. But look, we're not at that stage yet. We're at the stage of considering to lease the land for affordable housing. So that next stage would be later on next year.
Yeah, so it sounds like the community would still have an opportunity to provide feedback on the development, but at a later stage.
That's right. And first of all, council needs to make a decision as to whether or not they want to proceed with the lease of the land.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that context. We've got lots of questions coming through. I'm not sure we'll have time for all the 20 that are on, I can see coming up here, but we will see how we go on. The next question I've got is, what would happen to my new house value and our kids' future after this project is completed? Rachel, I'm wondering if you could speak to this one.
Thanks, Mehak. And thank you for the question. I can appreciate that people who, they're nervous about what impact this development might have on their house value, as they would be for any development near their property. I think the thing to keep in mind is that the research that's been done about the impact of affordable housing on surrounding property values is that the affordable housing itself does not diminish property values. And I know I'm asking you to take my word for it, but really that is what the research has shown. And particularly that's the case where the property is well designed and well managed. So this is an opportunity to have on this site high quality housing with really good, strong tenancy and property management in place. A private developer could come in, and if it wasn't council owned land, they could build their houses, sell them off. And there's no, I guess, investment or necessarily guarantee that those properties would be well maintained or well managed. But at least in this instance, you've got this opportunity for really high quality housing, often higher quality even than private market housing, because there is this investment into the long term. They want to reduce the ongoing maintenance costs. And then some really good engagement opportunities. So in terms of the future for your kids, the financial future won't be impacted by these properties. Your house property will not be detrimentally affected by the creation of affordable housing in the community. And in terms of your kids' future, the intention, the expectation is that the people living in these properties will form part of the community just as you are part of the community. And really, it's expected that people won't even think or notice that they happen to be living near affordable housing, or that kid happens to live in affordable housing and then that your children don't live in affordable housing. I think in the schoolyard, it shouldn't make any difference at all.
Yeah, thank you. That's really good to know. The next question we've got is, can you select a new location? And I'm going to throw this one to Rob, given your experience of working in research as well as practically in this field.
Look, I will start by saying both, council's responded, I think, very well in its, you've heard from Justin earlier about the really exciting community hub that has been developed on the in conjunction with the primary school and the recreation facilities opposite. Government has really earmarked primary schools in their policy and secondary schools as community hubs for communities. So to have the location earmarked immediately opposite a major community hub for this community makes enormous sense in terms of helping get people back and households back on their feet and part of things again. You know, this community will have many people that, as a result of COVID will have lost, both husband and wife will have lost their jobs. Suddenly, the ability to meet their mortgage payments is impossible. Does that make them worse people or whatever? It doesn't. The idea of, can you select a new location? I think it will be that there will be many locations in this community as it grows that will have affordable housing as part of the mix, because we will need that to keep our communities together and meet our needs over time. I think we would all like to think that if things go pear-shaped for us, our community's got our back to a point, you know, and this is part of that thinking, that we're there for each other, not only in COVID times, but ongoing. And so, yes, other locations can be selected, but those locations will be impoverished in terms of access to services, etc., compared to a site like this that has got secondary school in the future, primary school, community hub, regional sporting facilities, all at their doorstep. So you would look to this sort of location as being ideal for this sort of purpose.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. I do want to point out the thing that you said about communities backing each other really stands out to me. And you know, what I know of the city of Whittlesea, I definitely get the sense that there is a community there that wants to back each other in difficult times.
It's a great community.
Thank you. The next question we got is, how would it be beneficial to the locals? And I might ask Rob if you can speak to this. You've already alluded to it in your response, but if there's anything else.
Look, I can talk about this anecdotally, and that's by talking to people that have moved into affordable housing projects, some of our affordable housing projects. The young woman who at 21, because of a motor accident, had a physical impairment that was requiring her to live in a nursing home with people over 75 until she got an affordable home opposite the Victoria Market, where she now works in the market. And to see a young person having her own home, her own job in that circumstance. Her neighbour, a man with muscular dystrophy, you know, who teaches at RMIT because it's only 200 metres away from where he lives. Physically, he couldn't travel further than that and be able to participate in the workforce. As another example, the neighbour who was opposed to a project, who came up to me at the swimming pool afterwards and said, you know, I was wrong about that. Joe looks after my cat when I go down to the beach house on weekends, i.e. Joe's just a good neighbour, you know. The guys over in Altona that share the fruit and veg that they're growing in their community garden with the local neighbourhood and have got trade going in that space. This is, I mean, it goes back to council's adage, which I think is a fantastic one. We want local housing for local people that get us, that share similar values and are going to be great neighbours, who'll water the garden on the weekend for us, pick up the mail for us, look after the cattle, feed the dog. That's how it will be beneficial to us as locals. And to know that if circumstances go pear-shaped for me, if I'm living in Wollert, that I don't have to leave my community. That there's the potential for me to stay in my community while I get back on my feet.
Yeah, absolutely. What also encapsulates spirit of neighborhood, really, in what you've said.
Exactly.
Thank you. Wow, 41 questions. For those watching, I'm not sure we'll get through 41 in the next 10 minutes, but we'll continue to go as they come. So one of the questions is, why was this advertised as a community centre? And I think, Justin, you probably could speak to this.
Yeah, thank you, Mehek. Yeah, look, thank you for that question. And I mentioned this earlier in my presentation, and but just to recap, it was originally planned to use this site for a community centre, but after further consideration and investigation, Council decided to move the community centre to the adjacent Wollert school site, which is just across the road. And look, the key benefit of this is it enables better integration between the school, the kindergarten use, the community spaces, which will be for different meetings and getting people together from the local area, as well as the active sporting spaces that are on the school site. And overall, we think that'll lead to better community outcomes by having all of those really key core community facilities together on a bigger site. And as I also outlined, it means that moving to that bigger site means that Council's able to deliver a higher quality facility. And that's going to feature things like early childhood education and care, maternal and child health services, and the community meeting spaces I've mentioned, and also, things like consulting rooms and offices for visiting community services. So there's a range of different community services that need to be accommodated, not every day, but on a semi-regular basis, to that local residents can go and book an appointment with and have their needs met. So that being on that bigger site means that we've got room for those services. That and obviously it can be very, it's going to be a hive of activity when you think about it, together with the school. So the centre is still being delivered in the immediate vicinity of the site, and it's consistent with the overarching plans to deliver a community centre for the area. The decision to have the community centre on the school site was made in November last year, and it was made public as part of that council report as well. The local press also picked up on it, which was good to see. The headline there was, I think it was, they said it was a $7 million community centre set for Wollert, and that's true. We are, Council's going to be spending $7 million as we are at the moment to build that facility. When it opens next year, I'm sure the local community will get great benefit from it. We also advertised the new community centre in our local Scoop newsletter in March this year, so earlier this year. And that Scoop newsletter goes to all residents, and there's more information about that on our website if anyone who's online tonight would like to look it up in more detail. So just go to www.whittlesea.vic.gov.au. We've also done some more consultation more recently this year it was actually in July this year, so just a few months ago. We held some community consultation on about what we should name the community centre. So that's also on our Whittlesea website. So if you go to the Engage section of the whittlesea.vic.gov.au section of our website, you can see some more information about that, about the consultation on the name for the community centre as well. So yeah, so we've tried to be as proactive in how we've engaged with the community about the the construction of this new community centre on the school site and what the benefits are.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that thorough, actually, explanation on how the shifts have happened. The next question that we've got is, why has Council decided to overcrowd the established community by proposing 3,800 homes for quote-unquote unsocial people? Rachel, could you speak to this question, perhaps?
I can, thanks, Mahek. I suppose there's a couple of things at play at the moment. The 3,800 homes is the number of dwellings within the city of Whittlesea that have been identified as required to meet the need from existing people living in the city of Whittlesea who are I suppose, in unaffordable properties or tenuous circumstances. But there's nowhere near 3,800 affordable housing dwellings going into Wollert alone. So that relates to the whole of the city of Whittlesea. I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind is that the council won't be facilitating all 3,800 of those homes. I mean, affordable housing still primarily sits with the state government as a responsibility with the state government, but there will be some homes which will be part of new developments that you won't even know that they're affordable housing. They'll look like every other house in the street and there won't be a public process about it. It'll just be a developer deciding to do some of that. Some of it will be state government projects. And then some of them, in a few cases like this, it's an opportunity on council land. The site itself will only accommodate the same number of dwellings as if it was private market housing. So, anywhere between, 16 to 36, I think the numbers were talked about. But really that will be worked through with the community housing organisation that has the opportunity, if council decides to go ahead with it. There may be a couple of extra dwellings on this site than you would do for private market, because you might put in some 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings for older people who don't need a 3 or 4 bedroom house. They just need 1 or 2 bedrooms. So the actual number of dwellings might be a little bit different, but the overall number of bedrooms would be the same as what you would expect from private market development. And I suppose just one more comment on the notion of unsocial people. And I suppose there have been some circumstances where there's antisocial behaviour in, housing commission flats or in affordable housing, but there's some antisocial behaviour that happens in private rentals or private home ownerships as well. And I think the key difference is that there'll be somebody there who cares and is making sure that there's sufficient support for all of those people. So if there is anybody who's having a tough time, you can expect much, much lower levels of any antisocial behaviour in affordable housing run by the community housing sector, because they've got a tenancy manager that checks up on them. They've got a property manager who checks maintenance and see how things are going. They've got an existing relationship with the council. And the people who live there will very much become part of the community. Their kids will attend the local school. As I said, they'll be part of the local footy club. I think people will be, if this project goes ahead, in a couple of years' time, what will be remarkable is how unremarkable this development and the people who live there are, because it will just be just so much part of the fabric of Wollert, and people will realise, as Rob said, that it's not it's going to be a good outcome for local homes for local people.
Absolutely. So, thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
Now we've probably got time for maybe just 1 or maybe 2 more questions before we wrap up for the night, but let's see what else the community is asking. Why our kids and our future are forced into an insecure environment. I think this has kind of been covered already, Rachel. You've mentioned this before when you were talking about the future of local people and local kids as well. So if anyone's watching, you can skip back to the previous questions to get a response for that one. Who's going to be responsible for crime and unsocial activities that will come along? Maybe Rachel, I know you mentioned that it's not necessarily likely this stuff happens in private houses as well, but do you have any comments on this question?
The community housing organisation is responsible as the landlord and for making sure that their tenants meet the requirements of the Residential Tenancies Act. The council is responsible as the landowner and the lessor to make sure that there's arrangements in place to see that there's any problems. I think the key difference is, if you think about everybody in Wollert, if this project goes ahead, will know exactly who the community housing organisation is that's managing that property, and they will have their phone number, email. They'll know where their office is. And if you compare that to private market rentals, you know, my neighbour who rents out their house, I don't know what real estate agent they use. I don't know who to call. You know, the people down the road, I don't even know who owns the property, let alone who manages it.
Yeah.
I actually, you know, putting aside the fact that I don't think it's going to increase crime, and it shouldn't increase any antisocial activities, but if there are any neighbourhood disputes, you know, as you would expect in any private rental, sometimes people have different views on when's an appropriate time to start mowing the lawn on a Saturday or Sunday morning. You know, the local community will have quick and easy access to the property and tenancy manager, which I think actually places it way above any private rental property.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Rachel. Maybe one final question. Why would we make contributions for someone else when we made our houses with hard work day and night? I think this is a really interesting, we spoke about this actually in the beginning of the panel questions, and Rob, you mentioned something about it, like the community is there to back each other, and we know that the city of Whittlesea has people who care about their neighborhoods and care about who is in there. I mean, we've got 51 questions here. That tells me that people really do care about their community in various ways. So I feel like, yeah, this was sort of answered in the beginning as well, but also just refers to how affordable housing is actually an essential part of the housing system in Australia to ensure that people have safe homes, including the ones who are, you know, working hard as is suggested in the question, but everyone is needing those houses. Now I'll just, we'll see if this one is also answered. Why was only Wollert chosen for this public housing rather than moving it outskirts to Donnybrook or somewhere else? I think this was also answered by Justin a bit earlier, and Rob, you talked about locations as well. I'm conscious of the time, so unfortunately we actually can't go through all the other questions, but as you can see, there's a huge interest in the conversation, and they're all really, really important questions. So I really thank you for taking the time to, you know, tune in and ask them in this session. For those of you who submitted your question in your registration, and if that was not answered, the team will actually be in touch with you to respond to it, because I think they've got your email address from the registration, so don't worry, that will be responded to. Also, if we haven't got to your question and you posted it live here, I will show you on my screen. Just a quick second. Oops. Sorry, quick technology things. But you are able to, oh, I'm really sorry about that. It didn't go from the slide I expected. Just quickly go down here. If we weren't able to answer your question, but you asked it on Mentimeter, you can also email the email address that's on the screen right now, or call the number, and the team will get back to you directly to be able to respond to that. Now, all of the questions that we had in the Mentimeter and what in the pre-submitted registration as well will be shared with council and considered before a decision is made on the proposal to lease 1F Ashline Street Wollert for affordable housing. And to give you some context of what happens from here, the community consultation will close on the 10th of October. Council officers will then begin collating all the feedback received about the proposal to lease the site for affordable housing into a report for council to consider. Council will then make a decision about whether or not to proceed with the proposal at its meeting on 6th December, as Justin mentioned earlier. And the project updates will be shared with the community and on the webpage. So if you would like to attend, depending on the COVID situation and restrictions, or watch a live stream of the December council meeting, you can visit the council's website for all the details. But otherwise, we've come to the end of the information session today. I'd like to thank my panelists for sharing your expertise and your knowledge and passion for what you do. And thank you to everyone who's watching for your questions and also for your passion for your community. And we hope to be able to stay connected with you through the City of Whittlesea. But other than that, have a lovely rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahak. Bye, everyone.